Yo, what is up guys, Tuna here. As you probably know, if you've watched my previous video, I will be starting Volcanic Fissure of Snaking in the 3.26 expansion. And that is because of, various few reasons. But the proof of concept for me came when I was playing my Affliction Private League. And I got the build to the point where I was pretty comfortably doing a T16 Rogue Exiles with Titanic. As you can see here on the screen, this is the representation of what was going on. And this was at a point still when I didn't have Defiance of Destiny, I didn't have a Headhunter or a Mage Blood, and it was doing them, it was quite iffy, I have to be honest. There was quite a few deaths until I ironed out a lot of the issues that I had with the build. But those issues are things that I have sort of fixed through the PoB. And are ways that you can kind of get to the point where your build is tanky enough more easily because of the fact that I was able to troubleshoot all of these issues in this private league here. Now I have to say that the build is just amazing. Like, it has a really good progression from early on all the way into endgame. It did lose a ton of damage from the Mace Implicit, unfortunately. The Mace Implicit was actually giving a total of like 40% damage. As leagues come and go, we're always going to be getting new power, borrowed power here or there or whatever. We're going to be able to recoup some of that damage either through the mercenaries or either through some of the new cool uniques that they've shown, like for example the new unique ring, which without a crazy super min-max setup, you could get easily 50% penetration on that. Yeah, it's just gonna be new ways to get crazy amounts of power in the league, as there always is. So I'm not worried about it at all, losing the extra physical damage from there. However, this is where I will give a few sort of words of advice or warnings for the build, and things that I think are risky to do with Volcanic Fissure if you're looking to play Volcanic Fissure. So for example, playing Trinity on Volcanic Fissure, in my opinion, is a mistake. The reason for that is because we do not have the weapon enchant anymore that kind of enables you to more easily convert your damage, or rather not convert your damage, but gain a big portion of the damage that you deal as extra, giving you wider ranges for different elemental damages. What that means is that to get an even amount of split damage now, you're gonna have to really go for converting to elemental, Fist of Lightning or something like that, right? With the Fist of Lightning gem maybe, or with the glove implicit as well. But in either way, you will have to convert at the very least 40% to lightning at the very minimum, and that means that you are splitting your damage to various elements. And now the upside of that is, of course, Trinity is a completely broken gem. As we know, Trinity is a very strong gem, gives penetration against elemental damage. It's very, very good. In my opinion, it doesn't matter at all in this context, because war cries and in general slam skills have an insane amount of gems that you could actually use. We have a ridiculous amount of gems that you could utilize that deal crazy amounts of damage. Now, for example, Awakened Fire Penetration, which gives exposure and an absolute ton of penetration on top of that, is, in my opinion, already a great gem. It has equal amounts of power, or comparatively equal amounts of power, to Trinity, and then you're not losing your glove implicit, and you are not using other things that might lead you to shift your damage. Another thing that I recommend not doing is you don't want to go suppress too early, because you need to have a high amount of armor and a high amount of physical damage production in order for the helmet that you're using, Call of the Void, to not self-damage you to the point where you're just killing yourself in maps, right? It's really important to have a high amount of PDR, endurance charges, and armor to counter that. And of course, the downside of this is that you won't be able to run you won't be able to run less defenses maps because of that, and as well as monster steal endurance charges. That's kind of iffy. You want to try to avoid anything that takes away your physical damage reduction wherever possible, because of the fact that you will be taking a large portion of damage every time you use an exerted attack. Call of the Void, though, is it's such a strong helmet, and you absolutely want to be using it. Another thing I would really recommend to not do early is to go to the suppress variant too early, right? It's really important to swap the suppress at some point in the end game. However, if you are to swap to suppress too early, the X of Creation helmet will actually deal a ton of damage to you as physical damage, based off of a percentage of your total HP every time you use a exerted attack. Now, the problem with this is that if you are choosing for hybrid evasion armor bases, you are losing a lot of armor unless you go for IR. If you go for IR, you can actually get away with using hybrid armor. However, without IR, absolutely you will not have enough armor to, you know, feel comfortable in maps. Another thing that you want to be avoiding, of course, is you will 100% want to avoid going for like less defenses maps and that sort of stuff, because the less armor you have, the less physical damage reduction you have, the more you will be dealing damage to yourself with Echoes of Creation. So the Echoes of Creation swaps should come at a point where you have a decent amount of armor already, where you have acquired an Enlightened gem in order to you know, be able to get your full Warcry setup to the point where like you have enough mana reserved and all that kind of stuff. But all of that stuff is detailed in the POB. So yeah, those are the two main things that I would really suggest not doing early. You know, forcing the Echoes helmet as well as forcing the suppress swap, because although like suppress is very, very nice, the build is exceptionally tanky even without suppress. And unless you're wanting to go for like absolutely insane things like you're seeing here in the video, like full juice exiles and that sort of stuff, you won't really be needing that crazy amount of damage reduction. So yeah, all right. So in this path of building, if you can see here at the very top, there's a drop-down box, and this is going to be the loadouts. Now I've programmed it in a way where you can basically select all of these loadouts. They're numbered, so you know the order, but basically going from 1 all the way to 9. These are going to be your progression steps for the build. These progression steps are more granular in the campaign so that you guys know kind of what to go towards on the passive skill tree and what gems to use as well. The notable thing about these loadouts is that when you click it, it's going to swap all the things. It's going to swap, as you can see here, the tree as you saw previously, and it's also going to be swapping your skill sets too. And of course, your gear. However, for leveling, it's not really relevant to show gear. You just basically pick up what's on the floor and you put it on. Ideally, armor bases wherever possible. There is a filter that I am also linking to this build, so make sure you use that filter for leveling. It's going to help quite a bit. But as soon as you get into maps, obviously you want to be going for your more advanced filters or whatever you're min-maxing. So yeah, make sure to use the leveling filter. It will help you get your links as well as getting the right bases for this build, because getting armor bases is really important. Armor is like a large percentage of your survivability early, on top of molten shell and that kind of stuff. So use good armor bases. It's really, really important. So as I was saying, the loadouts, you can scroll through here, and this will take you all the way to endgame. To talk a little bit about the progression through the passive skill tree, what you want to do is you want to be going for versatility first. This is very, very important. Like, you want to have this before you're fighting Brutus. The reason is because if you don't have this before you fight Brutus, not only will you not have enough intelligence to use Frostblink, which is awful, but you also will not have enough dexterity later on to use Blood Rage. And you also will not have enough accuracy. For some reason, not Berserkers, but Marauders in general are not actually accuracy capped in Act 1. GGG, fix it, please. But yeah, you're not actually accuracy capped until you click versatility. So this node is like super important that you click first. So you'll be coming out here, grab the physical damage, versatility, and then from there, you can path out to butchery and outwards. In the next step, you want to be rushing Resolute Technique. That way you never have to worry about accuracy ever again, since we're not going to be dealing any critical strikes or investing into crit strikes. Crits are just completely useless. So just click that, and then never worry about accuracy anymore. You still want to have versatility clicked, obviously, because of the movement speed being good and the dual attributes. It's just all around pretty good node early on to have, because otherwise, like, getting your attributes is all the way down here. There's no dex or int available to you unless you go for the big nodes, which are kind of out of the way. So we're not going to be grabbing those. But yeah, you go for Resolute Technique, never miss. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And then straight away I go for Rage. I think Rage is obviously like insane. You guys know it. You have baseline 30% Rage, which equals to 30% more damage. And not only that, this allows you to actually sustain it, or rather generate it in the first place. So you're going to be getting 30% more damage baseline from the fact that you are now able to generate Rage. And on top of that, this gives 10% maximum Rage, which is another 10% more damage. and then 7% here on top of that, which gives you know, another 7% damage. So this cluster here essentially is like getting like 60% damage. It's not bad, not bad. Yeah, I grabbed that ASAP, and then I also grab Heart of Warrior. Whether you grab this or this, it's up to you. You already have a little bit of life, so if you're playing softcore, you know, don't worry about it. If you're playing hardcore, definitely prioritize life wherever possible. The next step will be pathing out to the bottom here and also grabbing Diamond Skin. Now, whether you want to go for Unwavering Stance first or this Measured Fury first is up to you. I preferred going for Unwavering Stance first and a little bit of Leech too. So like with this, since you're not fully converted by this point, you're going to be getting like quite a bit of Leech from this and quite a bit of damage as well from the Mastery. So since you're basically, for the most part, killing bosses in the campaign, 40% increased damage against uniques and rares is pretty useful. It's a good amount of damage, and these nodes are by no means like terrible. They give a bit of damage for 200 weapons. So yeah, they're not bad. So I path out to here, grab Unwavering Stance. The reason why I think Unwavering Stance Rush is pretty good, by the way, is because early on, especially before the first lab, you don't have any attack speed. Like your first lab is going to be Crave the Slaughter. Crave the Slaughter is going to give you a ton of attack speed per rage. So before that, you just basically have no attack speed, which feels obviously not amazing. The build's going to start ramping from here on out, though. Don't worry about it. But because you have no attack speed, that means that getting stunned out of your attack animations just feels, you know, it just feels fucking terrible. Let's be honest. Like, it just feels not good. So, Unwavering Stance. Click that, and you no longer have to worry about stuns throughout the campaign. At some point, we're gonna be unspecking it because in endgame, it's not really that needed once you have a ton of life and you're using Brine King and that sort of stuff. So yeah, but by this point, I think it's just huge. It's gonna make you feel very nice throughout the campaign, and I recommend it. Once I grab that, I want to path out to Measured Fury. And the reason for this is because at this point you're already using a few war cries. If you can look here at your gem setup for 2338, you're gonna be using Intimidating Cry or an Auto Exert with Seismic Cry and Infernal Cry if you also have a 4-link for that. If not, then obviously you just pop out Infernal Cry. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, you're gonna be putting those on Auto Exert, meaning that like all your attacks are exerted, and since early on you don't have that many uses on these exerts, you kind of ideally want to be getting as many additional exerts as possible. And you'll see that in the next step here, when we go here, the Mastery. War Cries cannot exert travel skills. Since we're just going to be spamming Leap Slam the whole time, we don't want to be actually ever exerting Leap Slam. We want to be exerting Sunder by this point. And I forgot to mention, by the way, we are leveling with Sunder. Sunder can be used pretty much all the way through the campaign. It's completely fine. If you want to, you can stop in normal lab and farm Volcanic Fissure of Snaking. Like, I think Volcanic Fissure of Snaking leveling is so much better than Sunder leveling. Mostly a preference thing because I like not aiming and stuff. It's like that's the primary reason why I'm playing a slam skill like this to begin with. The fact that Volcanic Fissure provides that insane quality of life that no other skill does, melee wise, right? Like melee. But yeah, so if you farm normal lab, it's like a 1 in 11, and then the higher lab you go, the more likely it is. Merciless lab, you know, if you bring a Volcanic Fissure gem with you, there's only one Volcanic Fissure alt quality, meaning that if you end up getting the alt quality thing, which I'm not sure how many labs it takes on average, but if you end up getting that, it's guaranteed, so you don't have to worry about it. And I think there's about 14 red gems as well that are transfigured, so getting that in lab is going to be pretty quick and pretty easy. All right, so moving on to the point where you have Volcanic Fissure. By this point, you want to swap around some of your skill gems in your main links, because yeah, by this point, you no longer really are needing close combat to leap around fast, because you have a decent amount of attack speed, because you are at your second lab, which is Rite of Ruin, which increases the rage effect, and the rage effect also increases your attack speed. So you're going to be getting a bunch of attack speed from this, meaning your Leap Slam is going to be very fast. So normal labs, Craves the Slaughter, then you go Rite of Ruin, and then from there on, you know, you'll grab the Warbringer, and then Aspect of Carnage last. However, I think Defiance next league is going to be insane. In 3.26, like, Defiance is going to be absolutely broken, so I reckon, you know, if you don't feel like you need more damage, you're just going to click Defiance, like, for sure, instead of Aspect of Carnage. Gonna make you like infinitely more tanky. Like, it's gonna feel absolutely broken in my opinion. Like, you'll be able to access endgame content much faster, Of course, the damage is going to suffer quite a bit. 40% is pretty damn huge. But I think you can make up for it with your gear, especially since like usually we try to get a Defiance of Destiny on this build, and since this build will be very popular, I think Defiance of Destiny will be expensive. It's a T0 unique, so yeah, keep that in mind. Yeah, I think Defiance here will be able to fix that in a way, and you'll be able to go for a more DPS-centric amulet instead. Back to the tree, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here. So you can see that the level 23 to 38, and then beyond here we go 38 to 67. Though there's going to be a little bit of respecking here. As you can see, I no longer path through Butchery. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm pathing out through here and up here. And the way that you do that, as you can see, is you will path out through here, down here, and then you will respec Butchery and connect your tree out this way. This is because it's just like a more efficient way to path, and also because I just want to grab this Fire Mastery as soon as possible because it grants 100% increased damage against ignited enemies, and since you are getting a 30% chance to ignite on the way there, you're just going to be dealing a ton more damage. Now, it might not seem like it's really worth it, but like you do get a ton of damage from this, and it makes sense with Volcanic Fissure as well. Since you are just going to be igniting monsters, you also recover a little bit of HP when you do that. Yeah, I mean, in general, it's just really good. And rushing Fortify would be a good idea as well if you're feeling squishy at this point at all. The top or bottom side, it sort of depends. I think the top side is usually more quality of life because getting 80% increased fortified duration means your uptime is a lot better. But the bottom side will make you tankier. So it's up to you whether if you're doing bosses, you definitely want to go for duration. But if you're just like mapping and you can get like a lot of fortified stacks easily, the bottom is going to be a bit better. Now we're swapping the pathing through here. We're going all the way up here, grabbing Soul of Steel as well for some armor and down. And as soon as you have Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, that's when you're going to want to be grabbing these points. If you're still Sunder by this point, do not grab these. They're not that good. They're just mostly here for the 40% Fizz conversion. And the 40% Fizz conversion is important because we're going to want to be, getting benefit from elemental damage instead of just physical damage, right? So we're just going to be able to double up the amount of stats that give us benefit to our build. And the way we do that is by converting. You have 60% on the gem and then 40% here on the mastery. And then Lava Lash, you start getting like a bunch of penetration, elemental damage with attacks, and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, get that when you have Volcanic Fissure of Snaking. Now, there is a problem. Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, since you are 100% converting, you no longer have access to Life Leech. As you can see here, this is physical attack damage, leeched as life. And Mana Leech as well, like on Jewels or things like that, is also damage leeched as mana. The way that we fix that is actually quite simple, and it's pretty broken. And the way that we do that is that we link Infernal Cry to Mana Leech. Infernal Cry linked to Mana Leech for some reason works. Infernal Cry itself deals damage, even on single target. And Mana Leech, you're going to be able to leech from that damage itself. So you just link those two. Now, keep in mind, this is like a high dex gem, so just keep it low level. It doesn't really matter all that much. Yeah, linking Infernal Cry to Mana Leech fixes your Mana Leech altogether. And then later on, once you get more skill slots, as you can see, if I could go into the later stages here, you will see that Infernal Cry is also linked to Life Leech. So you go Infernal Cry, Urgent Order, Mana Leech, and Life Leech. This fixes your Leech altogether. And this is sort of like a preliminary stage before clusters, because once you have clusters, that's how you fix your Leech in the end game. You're just going to be gaining back some of your skill gems here. But yeah, I mean, like in early maps, obviously you're not going to have clusters, especially not large clusters, which is where you're going to be getting your Leech. So yeah, that's how you fix your Mana Leech right there. Now, back to the progression, we got like early map progression. At this point, you definitely don't want to be grabbing these melee damage nodes anymore. You respec out for the life pathing. These life nodes are like kind of insane. You're getting armor, you're getting life, and that kind of stuff. Diamond Skin, obviously, like you only need this if you need resistances. But at this point, you're starting to fill out all of your reservations. Cannibalistic Rite is obviously really nice. 12% reservation efficiency here so that you can get more war cries on your auto exert and have more free mana. The Rage here as well. This is sort of like for the time being until you manage to path out to here. But this Rage is pretty good because you get like Rage Sustain all the time while you're war crying, which is, it's going to proc even when you auto exert. You're going to be getting full Rage all the time. And most importantly, we want to path up here for a Jewel Socket, Endurance Charge, and as well as the reverse mastery. So like obviously it's going to be 10% damage instead of 21. a big loss, but it's still definitely worth pathing out to Divine Judgment because you got an endurance charge, of course, as well as life, just a couple nodes, and eventually you're going to be clicking Divine Shield and going through here for the cluster as well. So this basically sets you up for the cluster swap. At this point, it's up to you whether you still want an unwavering stance. Obviously, you can tick and untick and see how it feels. You are using Brine King, obviously, and you're going to be also upgrading that all the way so that you can avoid being frozen. And then you're going to be avoiding being chilled by just crafting it on your boots if you get the chance. So yeah, once you unlock the recipe, you want to craft avoid chill on your boots, and avoid frozen is going to come from your Pantheon. Later on, shock is something that we take on with essences. So torment essences on belts give 60%. You're just going to be crafting a Stygian Vice, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And yeah, your tree is looking pretty basic by this point. It's just the same as when you were leveling. Just you change the pathing a little bit to accommodate for that, to make sure that you're transitioning into this tree. But you're prepping yourself for red maps, which at red maps, I really do recommend you grab a medium cluster, because this medium cluster is going to be giving you, and actually a good thing I noticed this because this is the wrong medium cluster. Let me fix that real quick. It's going to be this medium cluster here, which you can see is when you Warcry, you and your allies gain onslaught for 4 seconds. And also here, it's still the wrong it's still the wrong cluster. Let me fix that. All right, there we go. I had to pause the recording for a second, but we made it. So the cluster jewel that you want to get in red maps is going to be lead by example with Mob Mentality. Bro, have I still put the wrong... Oh, it's just because I haven't clicked it. Okay. Guys, fifth time the charm. It's lead by example with Warning Call. So lead by example is going to be giving you 100% chance, basically, or 100% uptime on onslaught, as well as a little bit of attributes. The dexterity is actually kind of nice, I'm not gonna lie. And then Warning Call will give you a shit ton of armor. It's like 20% extra armor and a bunch of max hit, so that's really good. Warning Call is obviously the tentative node here, but the most important one is going to be lead by example. The way that I usually craft this is, honestly, it's both of these are pretty common, so either you scour and alch, or you use reforged defense in the harvest crafting bench, since Warning Call is actually defense tagged. So yeah, you could just do that either or. It's not really a big deal. They're really common. Medium clusters are easy to craft for this build. The thing that's going to be a bit challenging is going to be the large cluster, but that's totally fine. We'll worry about that when we get there. So yeah, now you're pretty much red map ready. You got everything here. And the reason why you actually want to be grabbing this cluster with lead by example is shown in the red map gear set, as you can see here, because at this point, like by red maps, you get the cluster, you can actually start dropping your silver flask. And what you do is you want to be working towards getting elemental damage flasks. The elemental damage flasks are, you know, the flagellant topaz flask. Here, as you can see, so we got flagellant topaz flask, and then we got the ruby flask as well as the sapphire flask. And what those will do is they will give you a massive amount of maximum resistances, up to, I think, like, yeah, you can see 83 here once they're up. And the reason why you need to have flagellant on them, or masochist, depending on, you know, what you roll, I would say, like, either go for T1 or T2. T3 is terrible. But the reason is because you are getting hit all the time with this build. You're not an evasion build, you're an armor-based build. While you're mapping, you're going to have very good uptime on these flasks. Now, while bossing, obviously not, because the hits are far and few in between and they hit a lot harder. But while mapping, really good uptime on these flasks. You definitely want to be enchanting them with when charges reach full. And obviously, like, the suffixes are going to be percent armor. I like reduced effect of curses on you. You can go for movement speed here if you want. And I also like 15% of damage taken from hits is leeched life during effect. This one is really nice more later on when we go for the Echoes of Creation helmet, but I'm sort of like preparing you guys for that stage by this point. And then you can see here, the next step would be cluster swap. So the cluster swap, you are now going for a large cluster, and this large cluster is going to give you life leech. And the secondary and tertiary nodes don't really matter. As long as you have Feed the Fury at the front, that's the most important part. You can go for axe cluster, you can go for two-handed cluster, you can go for attack cluster. It doesn't really matter at all. So long as you have attack leech, that's the most important part. Because, you know, either you go for the cluster itself, or this is something I'm more like worried about recommending to people because I don't really know how common they will be. There is a leech tattoo, actually, which is called the Tattoo of Kitava Blood Drinker, which gives 0.5 attack damage leeches life. Now, like, if you get this, honestly, like, you can go for a different cluster altogether, and you can get some, like, pretty high DPS clusters, right? That just deal a ton more damage than this. But whether that's going to be expensive or not, that's to be seen. And we don't really know how the boats and that kind of stuff works. But just keep in mind that you can actually get your attack leech this way. And your mana leech is, of course, by this point, still going to be tackled by the Infernal Cry mana leech support thing. So, but the nice thing about this is that you save 1 extra gem, meaning that you can now have Urgent Order only once in your setup, and you can have Rallying Cry and Infernal Cry in the same 4-link. So that's pretty sweet. And yeah, so that's going to be sort of like the break point for getting your clusters. Is by this point, either you get a leech tattoo and you fix leech that way, or you get a large cluster and you fix leech that way, or you just go for like a really nice DPS cluster here, or whatever you would like. Obviously, there's a lot of room for playing around with this build. Nothing is set in stone. This is sort of just me going off of my 200-300 hours experience on the build in my Affliction private league, and I'm always, you know, I think there's more to learn, more things to min-max and all that kind of stuff. So obviously you guys can figure that out if you're adventurous or whatever. But the most important part here is the large cluster enables you to have 2 of these mediums. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to grab Onslaught, as we had before, and 2 Maw Mentalities. This is really important, having 2 Maw Mentalities. So you want double lead by example. What this allows is that allows you to get 100%, sorry, double Maw Mentality. What am I saying? This allows you to get 100% uptime on all your charges. The way you do this though is it's really important by this point, when you have 2 clusters, to have qualities on your auto exert as well as all of your war cries. The war cry qualities are insane. You can see here, like, this is giving 40% CDR on your war cries. And the same goes for everything in auto exert. So like all of these are giving they're giving 40% CDR to your war cries, and auto exert is 10% global CDR. So yeah, you 100% by this point want the qualities on your war cries. This is the thing that really honestly sucks. This build is so GCP hungry, it's insane, because you have all these like main skill gems, war cries, that need 20 GCP. So we're gonna be eating a lot of those this league, unfortunately. But yeah, get your CDR on the war cries, and then with 2 Mob Mentalities, you can 100% uptime on frenzies as well as endurances. And that also means that you can drop Blood Rage altogether, and you can also drop the, I'm having a mental block, Enduring Cry in favor of just like using Rallying Cry, right? Rallying Cry is kind of nice because with Herald of Purity, you're summoning your boys, and that gives you 5% more damage per ally, and also your Mercenary too. So like potentially, in bosses, obviously you don't have good uptime on Herald of Purity, but you will have your Mercenary, and who knows what else, right? But yeah, Rallying Cry will be pretty good to put in here. And on top of that, of course, Rallying Cry does give 4% damages extra from your main hand. It's just a bunch of extra damage for free. I think like here, without taking into account the allies thing, it's like 10% damage because of the helmet Echoes of Creation giving more damage, which by this point I don't even have. But yeah, auto exert as well as the skill gem itself giving a ton of damage. So yeah, 2 clusters, 100% charge duration. That's even without the mastery, by the way. You're just going to be getting those war cries up all the time. No worries for charges from here on out. Though, one thing to worry about now is the Glorious Vanity. The Glorious Vanity is going to be giving you life as extra energy shield, 15%. And it's a bit of a weird one. You'd think, like, why would you want energy shield on a full strength build? That is because we have access to Divine Shield, and Divine Shield says 3% of physical damage prevented from hits is regenerated as energy shield per second. We are reducing the physical damage that we take by an absolute shit ton all the time, especially when we're using Echoes of Creation. I have to like always like remind myself what the name of that helmet is, because the Echoes of Creation sounds kind of ridiculous. It's literally called Echoes of Creation, yeah. So like Echoes of Creation, we're going to be self-damaging, meaning we're just permanently regenerating that energy shield, and it acts as like an extra 800, or in this case 900 life buffer. So yeah, just like an extra 16% effective hit, and that's like effective hit that's always going to be like regenerating, so it's like permanent overleech type of deal here. So yeah, get that Glorious Vanity as soon as possible. And you don't need to worry about anything aside for the fact that you want it to be Doriani. But if you want to min-max, of course, then look at some of these like small nodes. You could get some interesting shit, like maybe life, I guess, or later on suppression is a thing that you can get. You can use your little calculator here, find timeless jewel at the bottom, and just look at what's in the radius. Another really good place for this glorious vanity could also be like up here, but budgeting the points to come up here to grab these two, because like if you put the glorious vanity here, you could see that it reaches these two. You could get two notables here, and then figure out your pathing some other way. But I felt like it was pretty inefficient. I didn't really feel like it was super worth grabbing those. Yeah, so that details the cluster swap, and anything beyond here is just sort of like the super endgame stuff. So suppression, by this point, the way that you get suppression is you need T1 roll on your gloves. This is mandatory. You need T1 roll on your boots. So 14 and 14, absolutely mandatory. You need to anoint inveterate on your amulet. And then you need 2 small clusters with elegant form with a minimum of 25% increased effect. Now you can get away with not having 25% increased effect if you buy tattoos. Those are so expensive and we just don't have any dex nodes. We have 2 dex nodes, right? We kind of need the dex as well, but I mean, obviously you can get like 2 suppressed tattoos in if you want, but 25% increased effect with a notable is really easy to craft, like not going to be a problem. One thing to mention is that like they do have to be 3 passives, otherwise you're not going to be capping. But yeah, so like T1 on gloves, T1 on boots, as well as inveterate, as well as finally suppress crafted on your chest. So with all of these things, you're going to be at exactly 100% suppression chance. And yeah, at this point, you no longer have to worry about it. Now, you are like losing a little bit of potential damage, obviously, by wasting 6 passives, as well as 2 jewel sockets, as well as an anoint, as well as some crafts, but it's so worth it. Like, suppress is obviously broken. And before this, like, you're still going to be tanky because of the max res and that kind of stuff. But yeah, suppress is really that much better. Now, the very end game setup with Mage Blood would be just kind of like make a wish gear. I also put Enmity's Embrace, which is the new ring in there. And like if you have an average of like 70 resistance over, that's going to be like 60% damage. So this ring is it's just broken. It's super OP. We're all going to be wanting that, and it's going to be super expensive. In terms of Forbidden Flesh and Flames, I think going tanky is always better. So Unbreakable. The main weakness with this build I found was chaos resistance or chaos damage taken. Chaos damage in this game is ridiculous. Like, it's just the one thing that just is so disproportionate to everything else. So finding a way to fix your chaos damage taken gonna be really nice. Make sure that you are keeping on top of that, like keeping your chaos resistance capped and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is pretty much it for the most part in regards to the gear. But yeah, I was gonna mention Forbidden Flesh and Flames. Other options would of course be Unyielding for a bunch of AoE, Unflinching for an additional endurance charge, and that's obviously gonna be pretty nice. Unrelenting is pretty good too. It's going to give you a bunch of reduction, so that's kind of nice. Undeniable is trash. Unstoppable is just not useful at all, and Untiring as well, unfortunately. Alternatively, you could click Aspect of Carnage and go for the Defy Pain, the new one. Or you could think about grabbing Tukohama's War Herald and replacing Fist of War for another support. So that's like an extra 40% damage you can get there from this, which is pretty nice, I think, because Fist of War is about 40% damage. I'm just kind of spitballing here. If you want like mega giga explode, you could go for Unicorn's Death Fury. If you want to really min-max Enmity's Embrace, like the ring, you could go for you know, something to do with Thessalios or Valakos or something like that for additional max resistances. If you go for Valakos, this would make sense if you had like a Purity Sublime or something like that, right? This one's trash, unfortunately, Valakos, but like Thessalios would allow you to just get a ton of extra fire res, and this would allow you to sort of like not worry about any max resistances tied for fire, so that's kind of nice. So this allows like basically shuffling your flasks, and I don't really know exactly like what flasks I would choose if I was only using a ruby flask. I would obviously go for, you know, a granite on top of the basalt, and potentially maybe quicksilver or something like that. I don't really like grabbing quartz because I feel like quartz it's conditional. Like it's nice for the phasing, obviously, but conditional suppression is not something that you really want. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this Valakos is not that good, but Thessalios could be really strong with Enmity's Embrace, so keep that in mind. Now, there's something that came to my mind that I wanted video, and that is it just came back to me. So the use of fortified gem. So since we are no longer using a two-handed mace, we can no longer make use of the overlord cluster, which is broken, which would give you fortify. I considered keeping that cluster in and going for mace, but overall I feel like axes just deal that much more damage, and the axe nodes are that much better as well. You do lose a bit of AoE going for axe instead of mace, and I'm not really 100% sure what is better here, but after a little bit of like thinking about it, I think axe is better, and it does provide a smoother transition from Chaos Supremacy. Now, Chaos Supremacy is completely broken. As you know, I put it in like my early red map set, as well as like if you can get it as early as possible, that's really nice. The bonus with Chaos Supremacy is that since it is a T4 unique, very common, that means that ideally you'll be able to get corruptions on it. The ideal corruption here is to get Fortify level 10. If you can look in the gear set here in the Endgame Suppress, this allows me to just like completely forego needing Fortify in my skill swap. So I just like put like life tap on there for quality of life, or Awaken Fire Penetration, or you could put like Fist of War, or whatever else, right? Like, it's up to you. If you feel like you don't have mana issues by this point, I put Life Tap because I'm not really too sure too many people are going to be like making sure that they have non-channeling skills -8 on their jewelry. So to make sure you guys have like a smooth time, put Life Tap, just like easy life, fixes things. But early on, like when you do have more mana, you definitely want to be crafting minus on all your jewelry. You do have amulets, you do have rings, that kind of stuff. So craft reduced cost of attacks as well on helmet. But when you are swapping your helmet to Exo Creation, obviously you lose a lot of that reduction. And of course, if you are swapping your amulet for your new amulet too, your mana cost does go up substantially. So that's when Life Tap really starts to come in and feel good. All of these things, circumstantial, whether they feel good to you or whatever, you can mess around with it. There's no going wrong here, honestly. And if you have any questions, you guys can pop by the stream. I feel like I've rambled on enough, but I felt like just providing you guys with like an info dump of everything that I've learned throughout the 200-300 hours of me playing this build. Really look forward to playing it again. And I really look forward to, you know, or hope rather, that you guys really enjoy this build, because I do think it pops off. Now, big shout out to Gabratha, and big shout out to Ben for exposing these builds. Garata played it in the Freesia League, and Ben played it in his own little private league thing. And yeah, I think those guys really pioneered and really pushed the build forward and made it more popular. So that's gonna help a lot of people experience Volcanic Fissure. It's such a fun skill, has such smooth progression, some of the smoothest progression I've ever felt on any build, and just has like very nice sort of like transitions into endgame and really cool items that it can use. And of course, most importantly, it has Chaos Supremacy, which is a cheap as fuck axe that you can equip basically in a campaign. It's fairly easy to grab the Volcanic Fissure of Snaking Gem as well, because you can grab it from lab or just buy it. It's going to be fairly common, since there are going to be a lot of people putting red gems into the thingy. Anyways, boys, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a bit of a ramble, but I really just wanted to provide as much info as possible. The path of building is going to be, of course, in the description. I am working on a full written max roll guide for you boys. That's going to be out by the latest on Wednesday, which is going to be the 11th. I really hope to get it done then. I do know that like it takes me quite a while to write these things, because I just like really want to make sure that everything is absolutely correct, so that everybody just has a good time when they log into the league. It's like, it's the first league in 8 months. I wouldn't want anybody to like not enjoy their time. So, all right, boys, thanks again, and enjoy the video, like, subscribe, and otherwise come by the stream, boys, and say hello. I appreciate you, love you all.